Who killed Kidambi Srikanth's world #1 dream? That is the question we are answering today. And when you hear the full story, you will not believe that a man who won 4 Super Series titles in a single calendar year, a man who stood on the edge of becoming the most dominant Indian badminton player of his generation, allowed everything he built to quietly fall away without ever truly understanding why. Here is what we are breaking down today. A 2017 season so extraordinary it has never been repeated by any Indian player in history. A world #1 ranking that arrived and vanished before most people even realized it was there. A national federation that celebrated a superstar without ever building the system around him. And a player whose talent was never the problem, but whose support structure, his training environment, his physical management and the brutal randomness of the BWF ranking system conspired to ensure that the peak he reached was one he could never hold. Chapter 1. What Srikanth wants was to understand the tragedy. You must first understand what he actually achieved. In 2017, Kidambi Srikanth did something that no Indian shuttler had ever done before him, and no Indian shuttler has done since. He won 4 BWF Super Series titles in a single year. India Open, Australia Open, Denmark Open, France Open. 4 titles across 4 different continents in one 12-month period. He was beating world champions. He was beating Olympic medalists. He was playing a brand of aggressive, front-foot badminton that made the best players on the planet look like they were standing still. In April 2018, the inevitable happened. Kidambi Srikanth reached world #1, an Indian man standing at the very top of global badminton. The first Indian to hold that position since Prakash Padukone in 1980. Nearly 4 decades of waiting, and Srikanth had finally answered the question. He was 25 years old. He had his entire peak ahead of him. He was supposed to dominate the next 5 years of men's singles badminton, and then the institution around him began to fail. Chapter 2. The system that never caught up. Stop. Because what happened to Srikanth in the years that followed his peak is one of the most preventable collapses in the recent history of Indian sport, and almost nobody is willing to say it directly. Srikanth reached world #1 without a stable long-term coaching structure around him. The Badminton Association of India had invested heavily in infrastructure, the Pullela Gopichand Academy, the National Center in Hyderabad. But the individual program that a player of Srikanth's caliber needed, a dedicated technical coach, a performance analyst, a sports psychologist working specifically on his game, was never consistently in place. Compare that to what Victor Axelsen had, what Kento Momota had. The Danish Badminton Federation built a complete ecosystem around their top players. Individual periodization plans, biomechanical analysis after every major tournament, recovery protocols designed around the BWF calendar. Denmark has 1/6 of India's population, and they have produced the most dominant men's singles player of the modern era. Srikanth was given a stage. He was never given the scaffolding. Chapter 3. The ranking system that swallowed him. But there is another factor that nobody discusses when they talk about Srikanth's decline, and it is the BWF ranking system itself. In 2018, the BWF overhauled its ranking formula. The old system rewarded consistent peak performance. The new system placed heavier emphasis on recent results and devalued performances that were more than 12 months old. For a player whose 4 2017 titles were the foundation of his world #1 position, that change was devastating. Points that had taken a full year of extraordinary performances to accumulate began to expire. The ranking that Srikanth had earned through 4 of the greatest tournaments of his career was structurally dismantled by a formula change he had no control over. He did not fall off a cliff. The ground was moved from underneath him. Chapter 4. Injuries and the years that disappeared behind the rankings. There was a body that was paying the price for everything it had given in 2017. Srikanth's aggressive playing style, the flat drives, the explosive net approaches, the relentless front court pressure placed enormous physical demands on his knees, his ankles and his lower back. The 2018 and 2019 seasons were interrupted repeatedly by physical setbacks that disrupted rhythm, disrupted confidence, and disrupted the continuity of training that elite performance absolutely requires. By the time Srikanth had managed to find any kind of consistency again, the field had moved. Axelsen had become untouchable. Lee Zijia had emerged. Jonathan Christie had developed. Kunlavut Wittitson was arriving. The window that had all existed in 2017 and 2018, the specific window where Srikanth's game matched up perfectly against the field, had quietly closed while he was in the physiotherapy room. In 2021, he reached the World Championship final. It was a reminder of what he still was. He lost to Low Keen Yu in straight games. One more door, half open, then shut. Chapter 5. The Verdict. So who killed Kidambi Srikanth's world #1 dream? The answer is not one person and not one decision. It is the accumulated failure of a sporting system that celebrated a superstar without ever learning how to sustain one. A federation that built courts and academies but never built the individual high-performance framework that turns a brilliant player into a dominant champion. A ranking system that rewarded him in 2017 and punished him in 2018 for the same performances. A body that gave everything it had and was never given enough back in return. Srikanth did not lack talent, he did not lack heart, he did not lack the ability to compete with the best in the world. He proved that 4 times in 1 calendar year. What he lacked was a system built specifically around protecting and extending a career at that level. Victor Axelsen did not become world #1 and stay there for years because he is simply more talented than Kidambi Srikanth. He stayed there because Denmark built an infrastructure designed to keep him there. India built a player. It never built the program. And that is the difference between touching world #1 for a moment and owning it for years. If this story made you feel the weight of what Indian badminton could have been and what it must become, then this channel was built for you. Subscribe to Beyond the Shuttle right now. Every week we go deeper into the real stories, the untold controversies and the brutal truths behind the sport we all love. Hit the notification bell, share this with every badminton fan you know and tell us in the comments. Do you believe Srikanth still has one more chapter left? Or did the system take everything it was ever going to take? The debate starts right now.